So close. There we go. I almost had it. Hey, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. That's right, Ronaldo. Here we go. A Sunday tradition. Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate it. Yes, Mark, I decided to leave a chat window open here's at the very top so that people in the recording could see, what everybody said. It only added like another 11 dimensions of complexity to to something that I thought I had figured out. Oh, man. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see who has joined us today. Deepak is here. Hello, Gavin. Hello, George. Hardave. Jake Parker is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Flame Institution. Hello, Renee. Good morning from tomorrow, John. That's right. John's coming to us all the way from Sydney. Hello, Nicholas. Oh, if everybody could please set your chat panel to panelists and attendees. That way everybody can see the comments. I'm seeing them, and I guess everybody is seeing them on the stream, which is great. Hello, Jimmy. Yuri is here. Hitoshi is here. Galali, Angus, Andrew Malacia, how are you? Chad Warner, Daniel and Corey. Oh, it's so great to see so many people. Well, we've got Andre on YouTube saying hi, which is great. It's a beautiful day here up in New York. I hope it's beautiful where you guys are. Hello, Sydney. Wow, Andre is coming all the way from Colombia over on YouTube. Thank you for joining us, my friend. Oh, wait a minute. It's time to do the dissolve. Oh, man. And the thing is, I didn't have Randy here to cheer me on. Oh, man. Hello, Daniel from Hamburg. Well, welcome, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Logic Live. It is. Thank you very much, Quinn. Thank you. I was. Trust me when I say I was nervous that I wasn't going to make it. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Logic Live. It's Sunday, and we've got a great one lined up for you here today. Let me close the chat window over here on the stream, and let's get underway. All right. We have today a fantastic episode for you. It's ACES Workflow and Subtractive CG Comping with Finn Jäger, who is also in Hamburg. But let's get going. This episode of Logic Live is sponsored proudly by our friends at Synesys.io, solutions development, integration, and support, supporting flame artists since 1997. These guys have been my personal reseller for over 15 years, and we could not do what we do without them. So I want to thank them very much for sponsoring Logic Live and being such great friends to the Flame community. If you have any questions about remote workflow solutions, you can reach out to them at Synesys.io. I want to give a special thank you to all of our friends, all of our patrons on Patreon. The support has been overwhelming. Randy and I set this up maybe 2 months ago. We have 3 different tiers of sponsorship, which have some great merch, have access to great content. By the way, I was able to get to the post office this week, and I got the second round of merch out to all of our HD sponsors. So thank you very much to all of our patrons on Patreon. And if you'd like to support what Randy and I are doing here, you can go over to patreon.com/LogicTV and sign up. I want to thank our friends at Gunpowder, which is another new sponsor. We had Gunpowder on a couple episodes ago, and they showed off their remote workflows, their cloud solutions. They showed off flame running in the cloud. It was really amazing what these guys have set up. If you have any questions about working remotely or working in the cloud, you can reach out to these guys, to Tom and Tom at info@gunpowder.tech. And I've gotten some great feedback from last week's episode with Runway. I know some people have tried it out. If you haven't had a chance to try out green screen at Runway, go to runway.ml and give their AI roto solution a test. It's pretty remarkable what the guys are doing. Hello, Yuri. Great to see you back, my friend. And our friends at Boris Effects, they make the best plugins in the business. Everybody knows that, whether it's Mocha, Silhouette, Sapphire, Continuum, or Optics. What these guys make is the best in the business. If you are in the market for some plugins and you'd like to support Logic, please use the code Logic-15 at checkout, and you can save 15% on everything that Boris sells, standalone or subscription. Thank you very much, Boris Effects. And if you're around or in front of a computer next Wednesday, and who isn't, by the way, they're going to be showing off new features in Silhouette 2021. You can go to borisfxlive.com. And in addition to showing off all the great stuff in Silhouette, they're giving away a 12-month subscription to the entire Boris FX suite. And all you have to do is be there and sign up. So Boris FX Live, next Wednesday, or this Wednesday rather, March 17th at 2 p.m. And let's give a shout out to our friend Jeff Kyle, who is here in the chat, and I work with him at Lively. Jeff put together the first installment of Logik Academy, which is a 3-part tutorial series on connected conform. If you go to logicacademy.com, you can check it out. And it's a wonderful workflow. It's really an incredible time-saving workflow, connected conform. And what Jeff does is gives an overview and then shows like real world example after real world example. And that's a tongue twister that I practice, ladies and gentlemen, of how to use this and the pitfalls to watch out for. As you know, we all struggle every day with 45 different social media versions and 75 different aspect ratios and changes that happen all the time and cuts that change. Thank you very much, Jeff. Connected conform is really an incredible time-saving workflow once you wrap your head around it. So next week, by the way, Jeff is going to be our guest here on Logic Live, and he's going to be showing his connected conform workflow. So please be sure to tune in for that. I'm going to paste the sign-up link in the chat once we get started here today. And tomorrow is the deadline for nominations for this year's Flame Award. If you head on over to makeanything.autodesk.com/Flame Award, you can nominate your favorite Flame artist to win the Flame Award. The ceremony is in April. I should have, Robert, I don't know if you're here, Robert. Robert from Autodesk sent me like the date, and I will remember it probably when the show is over. But I'm going to be emceeing the show when we give away the Flame Award this year. So please head on over and nominate your favorite Flame artist. Deadline for nominations is tomorrow. And we're going back to the Render Dome, folks. 2 weeks from today, on March 28th, Sean Cochran is going to be going up against Andy Dill in another Clash of the Titans. Thank you, Bilali. Yes, we're going back to the Render Dome 2, Sunday, March 28th at 2 p.m. live from the Boris FX Arena. These two guys are going to go head-to-head in what is, basically an Iron Chef competition for flame artists. We're going to give them 40 minutes. We're going to give them a surprise ingredient, basically like a task. They have no idea what the elements are going to be, what the task is going to be. And myself and Amanda and Randy McAtee are going to do our best to trip them up along the way, like any good client should. So be on the lookout rather for the YouTube link. This is going to be live on YouTube Sunday, March 28th at 2 p.m. Thanks to Boris FX for being the technical wizards in helping us make the Render Dome happen. All right, let's get underway. My guest today is Finn Jäger, coming to us live all the way from Hamburg. And Finn's going to take us through the magic and brilliance of working with ACES, especially if you want to work between apps, making sure that your color management is correct between apps, between Flame, Nuke, CG, and so on. And then he's got like an amazing subtractive CG compositing workflow. If you've ever comped multipass CG and you're handed like a beauty pass and then just a pile of passes from CG, and you need to, I don't know, maybe color correct the midtones or work on the reflections a little bit, this is just an amazing way to utilize all the advantages you have when you're working in linear and working in 32-bit. So Finn, you want to come on, turn on your camera and your mic? Hey, yes. There you are, my friend.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm awesome. It's a Sunday. I'm on vacation, so it's the perfect time to be on Logic Live.
Oh my goodness!
Excited to share this stuff with you.
Hold on, I'm going to write that down. I got to get Randy to put that on a T-shirt. Hold on. Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for the nice intro, Andy. Really excited to share this stuff with you, and yeah, let's jump right into this. I think I'm gonna.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions for Finn, feel free to put them in the Q&A panel at the bottom of the Zoom interface, or you can put them in the chat, and I'll make sure they get answered. And Valentine, I had the same exact reaction. Valentine was like, "Oh, that's Finn, like in real life." I'd only known Finn on the forum or on Logic. We had never met face to face until we did the run through earlier this week. And it's just great. It's great to make the connection. That's what this is all about. So take it away, Finn.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you again, everyone, for joining me today. I'm going to show a bit of color management and ACES workflows. I'm not going to go too crazy technical, I hope, because that stuff you can really spend some time and brain salt on that. So in this, in my example, I have 3 clips here. One is a red clip. So this is a clip from a red camera, R3D. Then we have a ProRes here from the Alexa. No, it's just some sample clips. And then we have an every raw file. Now, how do we ingest this stuff into Flame, and what happens with all the viewer stuff? What do we see here? Why do we even see this? I'm going to go through this now in steps. The first thing I want to say is, if you ever worked in the simple linear workflow preset in Flame, ACES is exactly the same thing. So the whole all the Flame color management actually basically is ACES to some extent, or let's say most of the stuff is. So it shouldn't be that much of a change to you. If you never worked in any sort of managed way, I'm going to go through it now and sort of explain the steps you have to take care of and where the caveats are, right? So this is sort of the step up from working on graded footage would be to work on the raw camera stuff. And
yeah, I think it's great you're doing this, Finn, because color management can be, like you said, very overwhelming. And I think it's really important to see what happens. Flame does a great job of managing your viewer LUT and your workspace and everything for you. But I think it's really important to understand like the manual way of doing it, so that you can not only see then, the advantages of having the Flame do it for you, but also it'll be easier to eyeball when things are not working the way you're expecting.
Yeah, precisely.
Just speaking of things not working the way you're expecting, could you just minimize the zoom window on your Flame? It's blocking some of the cows, and I know
sure.
that,
Sorry.
I believe we paid their union rep for a full herd, so I want to make sure that they can see him. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So when you ingest footage, and now I'm going to do this in batch, but you get the same obvious options when you go to the media hub and stuff like that. So the first case is you get some kind of camera ProRes. When you get a camera ProRes, there's nothing much you can do except for tag it as something, right? The tags in Flame are just a way of telling downstream nodes and your viewer what it is and what kind of transforms to apply to it. So it's just metadata. If usually when you pull something, it's set to unknown. If you don't change it, and unknown just means, I don't know, Flame doesn't know. So Flame doesn't really do much. It like thinks it's 709, or like tries to guess sort of what it is. But we want to tag everything correctly. So when you import something, and we know this is log C from the Alexa, right? We want to take it as just that. We're going to go to cameras and choose log C. And then we have a nice looking image, and everybody has seen that stuff before, and that's great. Cool. That's about it. That's all you need to do during ingest for ProRes footage. This could obviously be slog3 or whatever else you have. Now, when you have something raw, that stuff is a bit more, let's say, involved. The whole process is a bit more involved. So when you go into here, you go to the format options, you get a bunch of stuff. So the first one is the debayering. So you get all the quality settings of how high quality you want to debayer this. I set this to quarter because then it's fast. But you want to set this to full probably, or something like that. And then you want to use the CPU or GPU. But the most interesting stuff is the color, because a raw image really is just data, or a black and white image. So you can't really see it. You need to tell the computer of how to interpret that raw data in order to give you something that it shows on the display, like I'm doing here. And what I'm doing here is I'm using the IPP2 color science. So every camera manufacturer has their own little names for things, and their own color spaces, and their own whatever. In case of red, you have a bunch of different settings that are user settings and camera metadata, user settings and the RMD metadata. So that's like metadata created with Red Scene on set. You can only choose the camera metadata. You can do first RMD and then camera metadata. So all this kind of weird stuff, RSX, but usually I just keep this to user camera, or if I know that there's an RMD file or pre-grades has been done, I use user RMD. Now, all of those settings that you do here, you need to discuss them with everybody downstream in the pipe. So that can be extremely annoying, right? If you if you know you sent this off to grading later, you need to call the colorist first and be like, hey, you want to use IPP2, is that fine or not? Because you can never go back to this once you worked on the stuff. So IPP2 is basically Red's new managed color science or color workflow, where if you select it, it basically defaults to this nice thing called log3g10, and with a gamut of red, white, gamut, RGB. So it's quite the mouthful.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, but
IPP2 is definitely shorter.
Yeah, but IPP2, because if you choose the old one, which is the codec 3.x, I mean, Red always has the coolest names, of course. You get this whole list that you all know with Dragon Color 2 and Red Color 4 and Red Gamma 2 and all this weird stuff. And you even get linear and scene linear in here, which I don't know what the hell the difference is. So what I just use is IPP2, and I try to get everybody on board because that's really, really simple. Compared to all the other options. And then, you have a bunch more options like, oh, what white balance do I want to decode this as? And again, you can never go back. So this is all the stuff you want to either like take from the metadata, or you have to talk to people like, oh yeah, we're going to change all the footage to be 6,500 Kelvin. And that's fine. You just need to tell everybody downstream, because again, the red file itself isn't an image. So yeah. So we're just gonna do image settings from
test.
file.
That's an important. You're right. It's so important to talk to everybody upstream and downstream, and then have everybody do a test.
Yeah.
To make sure that all
yeah.
throughout it's a consistent.
Yeah. What I always do is I send everyone one that's involved a version 0 comp version. So that's just a file that's been dragged through all our steps in our pipeline, and then they get a daily with their sort of LUT that they want on it or whatever, and then they get exactly what we will deliver. And so we know they're fine with whatever we do in our color pipeline, and they know what to expect before we even started working on it. So that's pretty great, because it's annoying if you have an issue during delivery, obviously. So yeah, definitely test. That's a good one. Then in addition to this, you still have a tag that you need to set. You can't set this to from file or rules, and then it will basically respect whatever you set up in the format settings. So that's usually one you should go for. But you could also just say like, yeah, this is, red, and you choose log3g10 red, white, gamut, RGB. Done. And the cool thing is,
it's going to be a very popular baby name this year. I'm just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it so much now, in like when working with red footage with my colleagues, that but Loxy is much easier to say, so I prefer Ari. But I'm also German, so yeah. And need to show some support here for Ari. Yeah. So this is just something you need to do, and the cool thing is with ACES, one thing that you get for free is that all those transforms, the red, the Panasonic, and what have you, they all exist in all ACES implementations across all the apps. So when you import something as log3g10 red, white, gamut, RGB, you have the exact same setting in Nuke, for example, when you use ACES in Nuke. And by the way, this project is set up as legacy color management, so it doesn't matter. You can do it all manual, and it's still based on the ACES IDTs for anybody that cares what an IDT is. I'm not going to go into that. You can read Daniel's, who's in the chat, blog about all the intricacies of how ACES works. Again, deep topic. So that's for red. So now we have a log red clip. That's nice. Awesome. And then for Alexa, for every raw, you need to do the exact same thing. You need to go into format settings. You need to go and change you can change the debayer resolution and do whatever res you want to debayer. So this is pretty cool. With Alexa, you can choose actually HD and UHD instead of 1/4 or 1/8. I like this better. And then in debayering settings, you have a bunch of settings like, are you going to use the hardware debayering or the software debayering or a proxy one that's really fast? And you have a couple of different options with the software and with the hardware. And then you have the color settings, which are just the same as on red, just way less convoluted. So you can either choose you just want to use camera metadata, so whatever was set in camera, and this In this case, it's set to log C already, so we could just use that. But in case somebody messed it up in camera and was like, hey, I will, set it to 709, you can go to user and just choose whichever you want. And they also have a bunch of them. There's the like older film gamut type thing that's, you can set in some older Alexas, I think. I don't know if it's still in there. Then you have the white gamut one, which is the same as the native one. I guess they just kept the native in there for maybe they change white gamut at some point. Yeah. And then you can obviously choose it, like decode as a 709 or whatever you want. But we obviously want linear, we want log C white gamut. Or if you know what you're doing, you can do scene linear ACES, and then you get this linear image. But we're gonna do it all manual. So cool. Now we have 3 images that are nicely logged in here. Awesome. We get all the values. Everything is preserved from the raw. Everything from the ProRes is obviously preserved. Then I'm just resizing it so they're all the same size. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a color management node. And I'm gonna go from source to ACCG. Now, from source means look at that tag that's in here and transfer it to ACCG. And ACCG is just linear. Linear is ACCG. The only difference is that linear usually refers to linear / Rec 709, very, very small gamut. And ACCG is just a larger gamut. It's one of those things, you don't have to use ACCG, you can use linear, whatever else gamut you want. But it's great because it's a standard, right? All the apps that support ACES support ACCG. So when you go ACCG, that's awesome. And you have a standard that's the same across apps. And yeah, there's some other cool things about it, because working in a large gamut can lead to problems because red-white gamut is ginormous. So ACCG is an awesome spot to comp in, to do any CG work in, and it again goes really deep into why, but ACCG is awesome. And you're not losing anything from doing this either. So we go from this log image to this linear image, and if you've never seen a linear image, you think this is broken, but it's really not. The way linear works is light that's twice as bright as another light has twice the value. So like this light down here, up here, for example, has a value of 14, and this color chart here has a value of 1. So you can see that this is how light behaves in real life, right? And how a camera works. And each doubling of light values is 1 stop of light. So that's why it's encoded in such a way. And that's why it looks crazy, because your monitor doesn't work that way. Your monitor has very, very thin dynamic range, or very, very shallow. I don't know how you say it, not high, low, whatever. Not as much dynamic range as a camera.
Standard.
Yeah, so it can't show everything. So that's why it looks clipped and it looks too dark and blah, blah, blah. But that's fine. That's the data a computer likes to work with, right? Stuff is twice as bright. That's awesome. But then now we want to view this. Now, if you turn on the viewer thing down here in Flame, you get confronted with a bunch of options like photo map LC, sRGB gamma, just linear, video on linear. And you might think like, what is this? And I would say none of them, for me at least, work or make any sense. I would not use any of them. And that's where ACES comes in. Now, ACES gives you a view transform, or actually set of view transforms for a whole bunch of different monitors. So this one is the SDR, or in our case, Rec 709 transform. And what this does is it takes the linear data. So this crazy stuff, right? This crazy stuff. And it tone maps it down and brings it into a range that we can actually take a look at. But the cool thing is we're not burning anything in, because it's just happening in the viewer. So if we exposure up and down, you can see that everything is still here. And in addition to that, the exposure slider behaves really, really natural. So
Mhm.
if we set our exposure to, let's say 2, that's actually 1 stop brighter than we had before. So this would match exactly as the camera stopped down 1 stop using the f-stops on the lens. So this is the same thing, which again, the computer likes, and honestly, I love this for comping and things, and I'll show you later.
Yeah.
And then, but then you have the question, like this rendering that you see here of the clip, like, is this the clip, or is this what you want to see? And the answer is maybe.
These are very deep questions.
yeah, but it's
Right?
true, right? Is this really the stuff you're supposed to take a look at, the stuff you're supposed to work under, which for people that worked on 709 is a really weird concept. And the
Right. If that's all you
the,
ever knew, you know,
yeah,
when Finn and I did our run through, I mentioned how, like, my whole career in New York, we were handed color graded footage. There was color graded 709, and we were told, if you change 1 pixel of this, you're fired.
yep.
And so anything different is is like completely different. You know, thank you, Tim Farrell, CCIR 601. Yes. That was R2D2's cousin, I believe.
And so yeah, it's this and this is just the rendering that ACES decided on, of the tone mapping curve that ACES has decided this is the default Rec. 709 one. People might disagree. Manufacturers disagree with this, but it's a standard. And so
Yeah.
if you use this in Nuke, you see the exact same image. If you put this on,
yeah, that's really something that just needs to be reinforced, you know, again and again, is that the possibilities of how you could tone map, or how you could present this linear image in you know, on your monitor viewing space, are infinite.
yeah,
And every app does it differently. But if you decide to work with ACES, then you're going to have consistency across applications. So if you're working in Flame, you're working in Nuke, you're working in Baselight, you're working in Resolve, if you were to set your viewing LUT or your viewing transform to ACES SDR, it would be consistent across apps.
exactly. So it's actually good that you say this. The SDR part is a bit special to Flame. So Flame has an awesome feature, that is that it's actually doing another management step on top of ACES, and that is if you go into your color management settings, you get settings for your monitors, right? So right now I have everything set to 709 because that's what my monitor is set to. I work on a 709 monitor. But if you say you set your graphics color space to sRGB and your monitor color space to Rec. 709, or your broadcast space to 709, your image changes based on what you have that set to, because it's presenting a different image to an sRGB screen than it is to 709 monitor, because if you put them next to each other, then they match again, right? That's the whole idea. So that can just be, you know, in a caveat that you see something in SDR and you have your thing set to sRGB, and you export it as 709 and you compare it and it doesn't match anymore. That's because this is also happening. So just keep this in mind, that this is another step. And to do view transforms manually, like I'm just bypassing this now so you can see what this node does. This node is set to view transform. So that's exactly what your viewer is doing. And I set the tag color space, which is the input color space. You know, you can set this to from source, or you can set it up manually if your input tag is for some reason wrong. And then you have a bunch of different view transforms you can choose from. So there's the video colorimetric, that's like the Flame own one. Then you have all the weird other stuff, but honestly, don't worry about it. Just use ACES. that's basically
that should have been the
basically
title of today's episode. Honestly, don't worry about it. Just use ACES.
Just use ACES. Yeah, it's here you get all the different view transforms that ship with it. So there's a bunch of HDR stuff. There's a bunch of SDR cinema stuff. So if you work on a projector, you can set it up to be a projector. Or you can choose SDR video Rec. 709 limited. Now, there's a 1.0 and a 1.1 version in my version of Flame. For SDR, that stuff didn't change between 1.0 and I think 1.2. For HDR, stuff changed, so you need to make sure, sadly, that the new guys are on the same version as you, so you get the exact same rendering. But that shouldn't be a big issue because they're usually they don't do much updates, so it's usually fine. And then for display, here you set up the display, and this is what you would set up as your broadcast or graphics display, right? So you can set this to sRGB, and you see how the image changes now because it's preparing it to be viewed on sRGB screen, so it's darker. Yeah, that's basically what you need to know. Then the second option that you have is you can just put in a bunch of red LUTs. Now red gives you, let me go to my LUT folder here. It's fun. Red for IPP2 gives you this many options for view transforms.
Oh my God.
That you can download. And you can mix and match all those settings in Red Scenics and create your own ones. But so if you get stuff from set and you need to like match it daily from set, and they say they use IPP2, you need this info on what settings they use in order to be able to match it. So there's a bunch of them. And in order to apply this stuff, a LUT LUT can't work with tags, so it doesn't know what comes in. So you need to prepare the stuff before it goes into the LUT. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going back from ACES, which my input is, to log3 G10 red, white, gamut, RGB, and then I'm applying the different LUTs. So this is medium contrast, this is low contrast, this is no contrast, and this is medium contrast, but a different flavor. So yeah, again, talk to people. You need to figure out what the hell they used. And when you use an Alexa, that's a bit easier because they provide you with one 709 LUT, which is this one. It's called log C to video 709. And you can generate it on the LUT generator at array.com or DE. And that's great, but they had one before that was a bit different called the K1S1 or something. And that's the one Flame has built in a view transform called Alexa rendering. So, you never know. It's this is the Alexa rendering, and this is the new Alexa log C to video. And for this as well, I actually, I did this. I converted it to Alexa white gamut log C before. So this is a red source, but with color management and ACES, I can just go be like, you're not red anymore. Now you're an Alexa source, and that's fine. So yeah, if you compare them all, you get this nice array of stuff that you can have your view transform. So
that's the beauty of standards, right? There are so many of them.
Exactly. There's a billion standards.
Yep.
Then if you want to export this to grading later, so you can obviously want to do this in like a sequence publish in the timeline, but basically you can just go input color space and go from whatever you have, let it be ACCG, to log3 G10 red, white, gamut, RGB. You can export that as a DPX or a ProRes or whatever to your grader, and if he sets up his red clips next to your comp clips, and set the red clips to the same setting, then everything will match and he will be really happy. Yeah, so that's view transforms. You can set up your own view transforms, which is cool. So whether it's a LUT you get from a client, or you want to use the ACES one, but you don't want to go into the ACES preset mode, you can go into the viewing rules. And this, like the first probably 50 times I looked at this, I just closed the window and was like, yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest. It's a lot, but it's actually not that complicated. So if you want to create a rule, you can give it a name, and you give it, like, we call it ACES SDR. I already created that, but I'm going to call it SDR2. Then the view transform you want to use is the same options you have in the color space menu. So you can try all of this stuff out in batch before you actually do it as a view transform. We're going to go with SDR 709, and then the allowed color spaces. And that's basically saying if the input is any scene, linear or log, like the source is tagged like that, I'm going to enable it to be used as a viewer. It's basically so you don't get all the options at all times. So if you want to, for example, this is, for example, maybe an HDR transform, then you want to change this to any HDR monitor. So only on HDR monitors you get that option. It's a pretty cool system, but it's a bit bit complex. You can just set this to any SDR, whatever you have it. And that's basically how you set it up. I did this here for Aries 709. And you can go in here and like add a new one, and then you can go crazy and like browse for your own LUTs and all that. So you can really set up cool stuff in here. This is very good to have. And yeah, now we have it in here, and we can choose ACES SDR2.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
and I've
Ronaldo said in the comments here, it sounds easy, but he feels kind of lost. Ronaldo, I did this for the first time last year on a show that I was working on. And could you just go back to the preferences
sure.
menu?
Yeah, sure.
What's complicated is that there's a billion options, but I used it for two things. In viewing rules there, my client provided me with the show LUT. Every shot had its own CDL, and we can have a whole episode about how that damaged me emotionally. But they provided me with a show LUT. And so as long as I tagged the clips, or in batch to be, in this case, it was Alexa wide gamut, Alexa log C wide gamut, then the show LUT was applied, just to my monitor, so I could see what it was supposed to look like. It didn't affect my renders. They were all, they were all kept linear. And then under the input rules tab, one tab to the left there, I set up an input rule that said, if I'm bringing in EXR files, because all the footage I got was EXRs, from a specific folder, because all my footage lives in one folder on my SAN, then please automatically tag it, in this case, as it was camera and then Alexa log C and then, or whatever, that's what I did. So this way, when the footage came in, it was tagged. And then as long as it had that tag, when I looked at it on my display or whatever, it had the viewing LUT applied. So, and that worked out perfectly well until somebody put footage in a different folder. And then I, said a prayer, and then, or, when I would get something that wasn't in the XR. But it's really, the important thing with this is to start small. And I think also understand that the first lesson I learned about color management, it's all or nothing. If you're going to work color managed, where Flame is going to do this for you, then everything needs to be tagged. Even things you don't think need to be tagged need to be tagged. A matte needs to be tagged as a matte. Otherwise it's going to look too bright or too crushed or whatever when you see it with the LUT put on. And then
perfect.
We do have a few questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
The first one, I have one here from John, which is, when would you use from rules when you're importing or ingesting, as opposed to defining manually?
So I would use from rules when I know Flame will, I guess from rules is when I set up rules in here. So this is exactly what Andy said. If you use the ACES preset, then you get a set of input rules. So everything that's EXR get matched to, I'm not sure if it's ACES CG or ACES 2065. But yeah, so that's that. And it will also look at the metadata and see like, okay, the metadata says that. I find it to be, in practice, it's about 50-50 chance Flame gets it right, depending on the input footage. It could, if you run ACES and all your renders are linear 709, then you probably want to change the rules or tag it manually. But it's not, you're not baking anything in during import, as long as you don't do like auto transform or some stuff.
Right.
Then you're all, then just tag it. So yeah, and the cool thing is you can test this out in color space nodes like I do here. You can do from source, and now this source is red, but if I change it to an Alexa clip that's probably properly tagged, then I'm still getting the correct result. Because the color management knows is the source is Alexa. So yeah, that's basically. And you can see the cool thing about Flame is you can see what each node sort of passes to the next one, right? Because sometimes when you put in like a matte node, it sometimes doesn't really know and then go a bit wonky. Especially with matchboxes and like UV maps, you need to tag a UV map as a UV. And that might just pass through the node while you don't really want that. So then you need to put a color management node saying just tag, which you can do here, just tag only. And then you can just change the tag in your your thing. Yeah. Yep.
Couple more here.
Sure.
Ronaldo had a question. Do you have different experiences using ACES in other programs or in other apps? Because it's so heavy to use on Nuke, for example, and at least on Flame, he finds it more friendly and smooth.
Yes. So I think Flame actually has, maybe apart from Baselight, the best or easiest color management out there, I think, and also the most transparent one.
Let's give credit where credit is due.
And I at my company Goodbye Kansas, I take care of the whole color pipeline. So I use a lot like V-Ray and Houdini and Maya and all those other tools. And Nuke also a lot, of course. And to be honest, like just getting this list of what's really happening and like what LUT gets applied at what point is pretty awesome. In Nuke, you need to use OCIO, which has its own benefits, but it's a bunch of code that you're basically looking at rather than this nice outline of stuff. And yeah, having nodes that are tagged and you can see what color tag passes through. For me, it's amazing. It's a very, very cool tool to have for sure. So yeah, I think it's very easy actually.
Two more questions for you. What does the CG stand for in ACES CG?
For computer generated, so it's for CGI stuff. Okay. They only used to have the big ACES 20651 space, and that gave issues due to it being too large in some rendering applications. And I can maybe link an article that it's like probably like 2 hours of reading with a bunch of tests with like spectral rendering and all that of why that matters. For normal compositing, it doesn't really matter too much, but once you go into 3D rendering, it does, and that's why they call it ACES CG. Yeah, that's
what
basically
about CCT?
CCT. Oh yeah, CCT is a log space. I think it's color correction, and then T stands for toe. Not 100% sure, but it's their log thing. So like Array has log C, they have ACES CC and CCT. CC has been, it's the default log space, and then CCT just adds a little toe to the blacks that some colorists wanted, and so that's like the newer one. Gotcha. So yeah, that's ACES CCT. But you can use whatever log space you want, of course. You're not you don't have to use it. Some like it, some don't. I don't like it, so I don't use it. But yeah.
Valentine saying in the chat here that CG and CCT and CC shares the same primaries, but have different gamma curves.
Yeah, that's true. I don't really want to go into the whole primary thing, but but yes,
we could be here all week.
Yeah, it's called AP1 primaries. Yeah.
Very good. One more question for you here, and that is, why wouldn't you view in your deliverable format, or would you, or when? Would you?
So yeah, if my deliverable format is log, you could do your whole comp looking at this, but do you want to? Like, I find it ugly and annoying, and I don't know. Like, I mean, of course, if you deliver 709, then yes, you could view it in 709. But if you deliver log, which you do when you send this to grading, you deliver log, then this isn't really good to work under. At least I don't find it good to work under. It's nothing stopping you from doing it. You could look at this also if you want to, but it's not fun. And I like to view something that's made for the monitor I'm sitting on rather than the delivery space. But that's just me.
But the option is, at least like you're saying, the option is there if you'd like to.
Yeah.
Like Quinn
you
put
can
here in
view
the,
whatever you want.
The end display mechanism may be different from what you have to monitor with. Like if you're ultimately delivering for a projection, environment or a projector, and here, you have a monitor in your room, or HDR versus SDR, that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. You don't want to watch the like P3 thing on an sRGB screen. That would just look desaturated and boring. So
yeah, it reminds me of high school. Desaturated and boring.
Yeah.
One final question here for you, and then we'll move on to the subtractive CG. When you use the input transform to go from ACES CG to Rec 709, do you select from source as the working space or Rec 709? And whoever put the question in here said he's getting, or he or she is getting clipping when they try this. Is there a step down color space that's somewhere in the middle?
Oh, you mean from 709 to ACES CG, right? When you import 709 footage. Did I understand that
Yes,
correctly?
using the input transform to go from ACES CG to 709.
From a okay. From ACCG to 7. Oh, are you doing this on the timeline? I think. So there's one thing where you can see clipping when you do this is when your timeline is set to 8-bit, because then everything above 1 gets clipped, and so you get clipping. So make sure your timeline, if you're doing it on timeline, it's set to 16-bit at least. That's important to note, but that goes for any linear. I'm gonna go over the how to ingest 709 stuff. Maybe that's more, but it shouldn't clip. So if you go from just if I put down a color space color management node, and I go from, where's my ACCG stuff, from ACCG to 709, I use my view transform, and I get it right there, and it's fine. It's not clip. I don't know. When you have to use the view transform, not the input transform. That's a bit different.
Okay.
That's doing weird stuff or different stuff. But it
Maybe
also
that's the
shouldn't
answer to the
clip
error,
it.
because the person who's asking the question is saying that they're doing it in batch, but maybe that's it. It's using the view transform versus the input transform, and what they should be doing is view.
Yeah. I mean, because it's a view transform. You can't use the ACES 709 in here. Yeah. So that might be it. And you can see what it does here. It's quite interesting. But it shouldn't clip anything as long as your stuff is all 16-bit and you don't have any sort of clipping nodes in between or anything going like 8-bit or 10-bit. Yep, cool. All right, let's jump, I say.
Let's do it.
To the next one. Okay, one quick thing is how you can verify your whole workflow with different apps is ACES provides you with test charts. So a synthetic chart and a Sony chart. This one has incredibly crazy values. So if you write this to a ProRes, because this is like a value of -5,000, it will break. And that's the point of it, right? That's to show like the limits of codecs, basically. It's all pretty insane. And then they have this more normal thing from a Sony F35. And what the cool thing is, they provide you with a like ACES base and then a whole bunch of transforms after. So you can verify your implementations. They're like golden masters. So in my case, I'm using ACES to 709, and this is the 709 reference, right? And let me just turn this off. And I'll just difference comp them, and the difference is 0. So that means my transform here is correct. And I can gain this up pretty crazily. And there is a difference just because this is an EXR encoding, this is the TIFF, and then there's very small differences in like what GPU you use, I guess, and stuff like that. But the difference isn't great, and the same goes with this one. So that's how you can test your workflows. And you can take the source and make a daily of your view transform, bake it in, send it to Nuke, and be like, yeah, you need to match that. Make sure it matches, and then it matches or not, and then you see where the issue is, and that's kind of how you do it. So it's just a quick tip. Yeah, one of the things that many people struggle with is, or I've seen this question pop up a lot of times, is like, how do we ingest 709 stuff? So let's say you work on an ACES project and you get a graded archive footage stuff that you need to comp into something, right? There's two ways of doing it. The first one is using like importing it as a texture, as an sRGB texture or something like that. And then it will become darker and look all weird because it's made for like put lights on it and render it, which we might not be doing. So in that case, you need to use the inverse view transform. So that's what this one is. This one just goes inverse from Rec 709 to, in my case, I just use a CCT for fun this time. Do whatever you want. And then it's ACES CCT, and you can use that in your timeline, or you can just go, obviously you can go ACES CG. And then if you then export it again as 709, it will match exactly. I'll turn this off with your source. But this isn't perfect, because if you ingest this as sRGB and then export it as 709, then there's a mismatch, right? So you need to be aware of sort of what happens behind the scenes with all your stuff. And this is for footage, and you're going to export it 709. It usually works fine. So that's something you need to do, just the inverse view transform. In Nuke, that's just called, you use the output 709 as your input in the read node. That will do the same thing. So that works fine. There is, however, an issue that this view transform is not 100% reversible. So you can lose stuff in very saturated yellows. And if, that could obviously be a problem if you have this awesome CI logo from your client that they made, the kindergarten CDs that they use nowadays. They come up with, sorry, I'm salty. I had some weird experiences.
Finn had a hell of a week, apparently.
I'm on vacation, so it's not that bad. But you all got this like weird way to saturate yellows, logos, and whatever. Now, if you just take this logo as unknown, right? You just import it as a PNG or whatever, and you throw it in action, you end up with this completely crazy stuff. If you activate your view transform, this is not how the logo looked. This is just nothing really works. And that's the first reason is action doesn't like having different inputs into action. So you need to either tag all your inputs and then set the color management to active, or the better way is to just pre-convert everything before it goes into action, which you can do. You can just go and take that 709 reverse view transform, as I told you, and move that into action, and then this happens. And this is what I mean with saturated yellows is, you see that logo, that's what you want, that's what the client expects to see, and then you send him that. That's not good. You can't do that. So comping on client graphics is not really a thing you want to do while working sort of in linear and color management, because it just doesn't work. So I always put in logos when stuff is graded in finishing. You could also do the same operation and just transfer everything to ACES, and you end up with sort of the same thing. Or what you can do is you can take your ACCG source, bake the 709 in, and then put the logo on, and then it works. But you're obviously losing all the powers of linear. So there's no perfect solution for logos, but grade first, put in logos after, and then you're good.
You're good.
Not always possible, of course. So this is just something you need to sort of keep in mind. And but you will always have this problem, no matter if you do ACES or you use the Alexa managed workflow and use an Alexa viewing LUT, you will run into the same sort of issues. So just be aware of that. But there are benefits. Actually, the quickest linear benefit that I want to show you is let's say you have a 709 graded source, and I want to use another input. Let's say you have a 709 graded source. So I made this into 709. So now from this point on, it's 709. And then I'm adding a bokeh effect. So you get this and you think, that's a bokeh effect. But this really how lens would render the scene? No. This kind of looks like you printed out an image of the scene and then took your lens and defocused it. But it's not the same as, and when you have those scene linear values and you do it, suddenly you get this, right? It's like, it's night and day. It makes way more sense because the bokeh behaves different depending on the brightness of the light source. And it's not the same. So
yeah,
that's
bokeh
just one
was
of
the
the
first, when I was first shown a linear workflow, this was the first example I was given, was how differently the bokeh performed. And it's a great illustration of just the math and the reality or the realism you get when you're working in linear.
Exactly. So this is why I definitely recommend doing it. Or one of the reasons. Now there's obviously some more reasons. I'm just gonna go over this quick. So somebody rendered this really nice airplane. I wonder who that was.
I hear he's on vacation this week.
I heard he's on vacation. So you get this linear EXR and you think like my source is EXR linear. So it's both linear and you comp them together and you think, yeah, it doesn't quite doesn't quite fit, something is off, and you wonder what is off. Like, did the lighter not do its job correctly? Probably, that's also a reason. But if you look at the color chart here, if you look at this magenta, right, this looks nothing like the color chart magenta, and that's because this is not managed correctly. Like, I broke it on purpose because this is how Nuke works. When you just throw in a linear render and linear XR, this is like in Flame, everything is automatic. So I actually need to break it to match the stupid Nuke here. So this is what Nuke artists would see, and then they would go ahead and like color correct the CG and make it like fit into here, But this is sort of not good. And if you just use ACES, like use color manage workflow and tag everything correctly, like then you get that. Right? It changed nothing but the gamuts around basically, and you can see how this color chart now almost matches, even though I didn't calibrate anything or do anything crazy. It's worlds closer, like especially the red on the nose. Yeah, so that's the first thing, and I'm using let me use actually the same ACES rendering here so you can see what I mean better. So yeah, here, right. This is just a change in gamut. So if you have a saturation mismatch, it's usually the gamut that's set wrong. And then if you just do some comp tricks, you can do that. And this is just multiplying up the linear input. So it's just a look node with a simple gain here to calibrate the chart, and then you're almost done. And this takes 5 minutes rather than having to use gain, gamma, and lift and stuff like that. Yeah, another quick one is if you never used it, use it. The new master grade node. Master grade is freaking amazing.
Oh yeah, when you flip it into the linear mode, it's
exactly. So you
changer.
get lift, gamma, gain by default. But if you go to controls, you can set it to C in linear, and then you get exposure, contrast, and offset. And those controls, they work much better than lift, gamma, gain on linear stuff. So this is what you want to use when you work on CG. You want to use the master grade. It's freaking amazing. Or the look node. Look node is like just a CDL, though it's pretty basic, but this one is very good. So use that. One of the negative things though with ACES, that's like really one of the issues that keep cropping up, and you might run into it if you have a green screen shot or anything blue, is what you see here. You get those like out of gamut craziness. And this is a problem with the ACES view transform. And there's different view transforms handle this differently. So this is ACES. If I switch this to Arri, the blue works much better, but the red image here just goes full on broken. So it's not ideal. And that's because the camera shoots in such a wide gamut, and they try to not really clip anything or try to like compress it so it works on your display. And there's different methods to doing that. Now, luckily, because this problem exists, ACES has come up with a LMT fix. So it's basically a lot that you can throw in between that will fix this for you. So again, before, after, or I guess so here, after, so it's
cool.
It's pretty cool. It's not ideal though, and they have come up with a better version it's in beta right now called the Gamut Compressor or Gamut Mapper, and they released the Matchbox for it, or GLSL plugin, but it doesn't work yet. So that's why I can't demo it. But I've used this in Nuke in production because they also provide you with like a Blink script, and it's very awesome because we had this on a recent show where we had blue neon stuff doing exactly this kind of crap, and we wanted this.
Yeah, totally.
But that's
great.
And that lives. If you want to look for it, it's a bit hidden. It's a bit. Let me find it. It's here. You need to like do a custom color transform and then import it, and it's in camera Arri, and then ACES to ACES blue DSAT fix.
Oh.
But the cool thing is they provide you with a link to an explainer in here, so you can go to acescentral.com and check it out. So yeah, that's basically my rundown of color management.
That's great, man. We're running a little long, so I'd like to jump over to the
Yes.
subtractive CG if we could.
Yes,
Subtractive
yes,
CG
yes. For
comp.
anyone else
If
that
anybody
wonders
does,
how to export stuff like from the
oh
timeline,
yeah.
I can show that later. But yeah, subtractive CG. Okay, something
Actually, you know
totally
what? I'm
different.
sorry.
Yeah.
Let's do it. If you, I mean, the last step here is exporting.
Cool.
So let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, cool. So you have a timeline, whatever it is, ACES, CG, whatever you have, and you want to export that for grading, right? You can just go export. You can do hold on, I need to set a freaking folder here, whatever. And you go for sequence publish, right? And then it exports every single thing to like DaVinci, whatever you want. And you have the same options here as in your view or input transforms. So on the movie options, you can say use LUT. Now, I don't like the word LUT because it's supposed to be like use color management, in my opinion, but okay. Then you choose input transform and you can go and be like input color spaces from source, that's fine, to, let's say, grading wants ACES CCT, to ACES CCT. And then this is what you actually render. Or if you want to go to nuke, you choose, is it media only, file sequence, and you go and choose, EXR, and then you use a LUT to go from source to linear ACCG. And then you can output nice linear stuff to nuke. So that's pretty cool. If you want to output a sequence though, like a whole film, and you have different tagged stuff in your timeline, then Flame export will go broke, and because it will apply the same view transform to whatever the first clip in your timeline is tagged as, not what every individual one is tagged as. So you need to sort of normalize your whole timeline to have the same tag. So what I just do is I just do it manually, add a color management gap effect, go view transform from source to rec, and then my whole timeline now is rec 709, and just export that and be done with it. That's just the hack. And you can obviously hard commit that. Just a quick export, because if you forget this, Flame will actually show you an error like, stuff has different text in your timeline, are you sure? And then it reminds you. So I hope that was a quick overview. So
no, that was great. I think it's so like the biggest takeaway from that is that if you don't publish, then you need to normalize the timeline. Otherwise, you're just going to get it's going to export based on the tag of the first clip. I've been burned by that myself. So.
Yeah, and do still check your export. Like the Flame version I'm on, when I do sequence publish, it seems to sort of forget the color space of the text sometimes. And so some EXRs end up having the wrong tag and the wrong color space. So it's a bit, but I think it's fixed now. I just haven't upgraded. So yeah, let's go subtractive comp. So for everyone that has worked with multi-channel EXR stuff, you're used to this, or even this tremendous list of channels that, in Nuke, they're pretty hidden. So in Flame, you see them all at the same time, which is fine. The usual way, if you want to go ahead and like, okay, you get this as your beauty, you want to like change the reflections, right? Or something like that. You need to rebuild the beauty pass from all the other passes. So you would go in and like, you add the diffuse direct with the diffuse indirect, you multiply it by the color, you comp in more stuff, and then you comp in this, and then the CG render artist forgot to render in a mid layer, so you don't have that thing anymore, and so then you're screwed, right? Or even worse, they forgot like to render the indirect diffuse or something, and then you end up with this. So that's not good. And for everyone that hasn't worked with this, you do this so you can put in like grade notes in between here, so you can basically dissect the render into all the parts, so you can work on different parts.
And I know for me, like the process has been, I get a beauty pass and then all these passes. The beauty pass is what the CG artists kind of put together.
Yeah.
And if I need to do something like color correct the midtones on just the reflections, I have to like rebuild the whole comp. I have to rebuild all the passes to get as close to the beauty as I can.
Yeah.
And that's pain in the ass.
Yeah. And especially sometimes it's not even possible. Like if there's like fog effects and weird like translucency, or, sometimes there's like refractions happening, and then it's really hard to sort of comp it all together. But because we're in linear, we can do fun math tricks, and we can, instead of this, which I call additive comping, because you're adding all the layers together, you can instead take the beauty and just subtract one from it. So in this case, I'm taking the diffuse direct and I'm subtracting it. And this is just a comp node set to subtract from the beauty. So this is all that's left over. Then I'm taking the diffuse direct path, running it through master grade, changing all the diffuse direct to blue, whatever, and then I'm adding it back on. And that's the way, that way I only change diffuse direct. And if I turn off the master grade and I go back to this matches the beauty, right? Because we're just subtracting and adding the same thing. Nothing is happening. So this is
This would have given me back like years of my life, I have to tell you.
And it works like, extremely well. Yeah.
This was the thing when I was, if someone had shown me this when I was first told you should comp CG in linear, and I went, you're crazy. I've been doing this the same way my whole career, and you're not going to tell me. If I had seen this, there would have been no hesitation, no argument. It's just like, it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It's changed my life as well. I learned this in Nuke because I did this the same way, and I would always be like, oh, this is an Arnold render. So then I went on the Arnold website and like saw like I need to combine this channel in that way, and because every renderer is different. If you do it like that, it doesn't matter. You're just subtracting it. Or like obviously if you have a channel that's like multiplied on, you need to divide it and stuff like that. But usually just subtracting it works really well. And the other cool thing about linear is if you exposure down a pass, you're basically just removing the contribution because exposure is just multiplication. So that's another fun thing.
So great. Oh.
So yeah, that just makes your like CG comp life so much easier. And you can go ahead and like do this to more passes and then just chain them as much as you want basically, and it's fine because you're only changing that small thing and you're not running everything through every grade node, but you're just running that small thing through the grade node. And you can just go into your node bin and just save it as a user node. So Subtractive Comp, throw it in here, be done. Hook it up.
It's great.
Cool. And
it's great.
And then if you have a render artist that is awesome, or has like newer renderers, what they can output is like render layers per light that they use. So if you see this is like the fill light of the scene. This is the like main light, and this is just the kicker light. And I don't need to have all the lights, or I could, in rendering, you could group them into logical lights. This is just the HDRI contribution right here. You can do the exact same trick and just go ahead and remove a light from the scene without having to re-render. So like you want to take this a little bit, like the client says like, you know what, I don't like this like light that hits him on the right side from the back. So you just say, okay, sure, gone, see?
That's amazing.
And like V-Ray has this now, and it's called like light mixing, and you can do it straight up in the like V-Ray viewer. But this is just another great trick. So talk to your CG people and be like, yeah, I want light selects if you can, and tell them like what it is.
Great. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean, just for fun,
I can't tell you how many times I've tried to like take the edge, like key light pass or the edge light pass, something indirect, and roto out just like the the edge, like what you're seeing here, the edge lights on the top or something.
Yeah.
And try to subtract, color correct them down or whatever. Oh man.
Because that's hard to do in CG.
Brilliant. Because
everything takes forever, right? You adjust the like power of it or something, and with this you don't really need to worry about it. And the same goes for like environment. So you can cover, and you can go ahead, like I went totally crazy. Like I have the environment direct diffuse and stuff. So I can even change, just the reflections that come from the HDRI specifically. I mean, this is a bit excessive, but yeah, you can.
You're on vacation though, it's fine.
Yeah, I'm on vacation, so it's fine. I mean, and as a renderer, like if you're rendering in a Blender, you just press all the buttons and you just get all the stuff. It just takes a bit longer. And then you can obviously do fun stuff and then animate those and get like, have it sort of ramp up and down and create those lighting effects that you just can't do in when you don't have it.
Mhm.
Like the source is just this static turntable, but you can go and have lights turn on at specific times and animate them based like to your plate. Like you have a flicker, you need one light to flicker in a specific way that's like matching a real fire or whatever, then you can do that now. I find this much easier than to use like normal relighting and all that, and it's much cleaner. So yeah, that's subtractive comp and selective lighting. Quickly, anyone has
fantastic.
questions? I hope I didn't
Oh man,
go too fast with this.
no, amazing. I mean, what's really great. It's a very simple concept. If you showed, if you take out the master grade note, it's 2 notes.
Yep.
You know, it just shows the like the inherent power of working 32-bit and working linear, and oh man, selective lights or selective light passes. All right. I got to tell, I don't know who's going to be more upset with me, my head of CG or my head of engineering, who's going to all of a sudden get a request for more render nodes in the farm.
I think it's actually like if the renderer supports it, it's not that much more work because they need to like, I think so. I'm not sure.
All right.
I hope. I just request those and be like, I need it.
I'll just tell them to, if they have any complaints, I'll just send them to Finn.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's amazing. Does anybody have any questions for Finn about either the subtractive CG comping or any of the ACES and color management stuff that we looked at? Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give away some prizes. And if you do have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat or in the Q&A. So Finn, I'm just going to stop your screen share. And let's see here. We'll do this, and maybe we'll do this one today. All right. It's Logic Live prize time, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let's see. The first thing on our list today is I have here a Logic TV mask, courtesy of our friends at Synesys. Stay safe and stay fashionable with a Logic TV mask. And so we're going to go ahead and tab over here to our handy dandy random name picker. I've got everybody who signed up here in the random name picker. Today's random name picker is brought to you by, God, it looks like, oh, VRBO. Well, if anybody's looking to book a vacation home. Personally, I would love to go anywhere at this point. All right, let's start this and see what we get here. Round and round we go. Where it stops, nobody knows. You have to be here to win. Adam Shell, ladies and gentlemen. Adam, you're here, right? Yes, there you are. Congratulations, my friend. You won a Logic Live mask. I'll email you after. Let's see. Right here, next up, I have one of these wonderful Logic.TV phone chargers, courtesy of our friends at Synesys. So let's spin the wheel one more time. Oh, very exciting. Gavin, are you here? Let's see. Scrolling through the list. Gavin is not here. Oh, Gavin is here. Congratulations, my friend. There you are. Nice. One more for you. This is very exciting. Our friends over at Boris Effects have offered up another 12-month subscription to Optics, their brand new plugin. So I'm going to give away a license of Optics. This is basically like Sapphire, but within Photoshop. So all the great stuff you can do with Sapphire located in Photoshop. Let's spin one more time. All right, here we go. Deepak, are you here today? Yes, you are. Oh, that's great. Congratulations. Nice. Congratulations, Deepak. And thank you to our friends at Boris Effects for making that happen. You know, before we go to the next upcoming episodes of Logic Live, I just want to take a second here and thank everybody. You know, it's been a year. Next week actually will be 1 year of Logic Live, and it would have been nothing without you all. And so I've been going through and kind of reminiscing a little bit and looking back at like this is our 46th episode of Logic Live, and looking at all the things we've covered, all the people that we've met, and just kind of all the good times that we had over the past year. And it's really kind of remarkable. So I encourage everybody, if you have some time, definitely check out all the different things that we covered on Logic Live. And I'm going to be publishing out a poll just kind of for fun to see like what were your favorite episodes of Logic Live. You can pick as many as you'd like. It'd be great to kind of see what people really enjoyed, and we'll try to line up that kind of stuff going forward. I'm going to put that, before I forget, I'm going to actually right now, before I forget, because I forget every week. I'm going to put in the chat here. There we go. This is a link for next week's episode, the link for the Flame Award, and then the Logic TV poll. So before I close this out completely, I just want to say thank you very much to Finn. This was absolutely awesome. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for being so active on the forum and for sharing the knowledge with everybody. It's kind of what makes Logic just a wonderful place. So huge thank you to Finn.
Thank you. It's awesome.
All right. Coming up next week on Logic Live, we have Connect to Conform with Jeff Kyle. Jeff did that great Logic Academy session on Connect to Conform, and he's going to come on next week and take you through the ins and outs of it. March 28th at 2 p.m., Render Dome 2, Sean Cochran versus Andy Dill for a Clash of the Titans. Can't wait for that. April, I can't wait to not be a competitor in Render Dome and just be a commentator on Render Dome. It's going to be a lot of fun. April 11th, 2 p.m., our friends at actionvfx.com are going to come on and show off comping with VFX stock. They're actually running a great contest right now. If you head on over to actionvfx.com, it's similar to like a one frame of white. You can make something awesome, a 15-second clip with using some clips, some VFX stock that they provide, and they got some great prizes in there as well. So definitely check that out. And April 18th from LA, the lovely and talented Andy Brown is going to take us through some flame magic. The forum. I see Randy has joined in here today. Randy, thank you very much for the forum and for keeping it going and for staying so active. The forum is busier and more vibrant than it's ever been. We are over 4,000 page views a day on the forum. And a round of applause for everybody who contributes. And thank you, Randy, again for keeping it going. Yes, we're dangerously close to 10-bit members, to 1,024 members, guys. So if you have any friends in the biz, please get them to over to forum.logic.tv, and also over to logic.tv. All this episode of Logic Live and all the past episodes and a bunch of other great content are available for you at logic.tv. I'm going to have a new episode of the Logic podcast for you available next week. I think Miriam's here. Did I see you in the... There you are. Yes. I had a great chat with Miriam Oladejo, and we're going to release that next week, probably on Wednesday. And if you haven't already subscribed to the Logic podcast, you can get it in your podcatching app of choice. Yes, we're also dangerously close to 1,000. What'd you think of that animation there, Randy? Huh? Amazing, right? We're dangerously close to 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed over at youtube.com/logiclive, please do. After 1,000 subscribers, magical things happen, I've been told. And so algorithmically. And so we'd really like to get there. So if you have any friends, cousins, neighbors, please also encourage them to subscribe. And thank you again to everybody who's been a patron on Patreon. We're going to go and right after this episode, we're going to go over and have a private Q&A for our Patreon patrons with Finn. So if anybody does have any, questions, any specifics, or you want to go deep dive on any of the color stuff, this is a perfect opportunity. So thank you everybody who's signed up. Patreon.com/LogicTV. A reminder again that tomorrow is the deadline to nominate for the Flame Award. And I looked up, it's April 28th is the big Flame Award ceremony that I'm going to be emceeing. And look for details on that coming soon. And that's makeanything.autodesk.com/Flame Award. And of course, if you need anything from Boris Effects, just use the code Logic-15 at checkout, save 15%, and support Logic.tv. And Gunpowder. Thank you to the guys at Gunpowder. If you have any needs for cloud services or technical services, check them out at gunpowder.tech. And of course, finally, thank you, Synesys, for your continuing support of everything we're doing here at Logic and the Flame community at large. Solutions development, integration, and support, supporting Flame artists since 1997. That's http://synesys.io. That's going to do it for Logic Live this week. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Finn. And we will see you all next time.